Hello and welcome to a Daily Record special. I'm Graeme Young from Daily Record, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Simon Ankersen from TransferRoom, one of the main players there at the kind of innovative transfer of the last few years, where it's a kind of speed dating format where clubs from all around the world meet up, Scottish clubs as well, and discuss transfers face to face and build relationships. Like I already said, it's like a kind of football Tinder where these clubs come together and meet and make a match together. And Simon's been a massive part of that. Simon, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm very good, very good. Tuning in here from sunny Athens today. So yeah, pleasure to be with you.
And you're just off TransferRooms at its latest. It's like a James Bond style. You go across the globe, don't you? And all these amazing cities. But it's been Amsterdam this week. Where is TransferRoom? It launched in 2017. We're now in 2026. How important is it to football clubs across the world in terms of doing business? How important has TransferRoom become?
Yeah, I think it's become an essential part of many clubs' operations. I think some clubs nowadays even have people that their work is almost dedicated to managing the transfer room and all the information that's flowing around in there. And as you alluded to, in 2017 and before, it's a very manual process to collect information in the market. You see how global the game is nowadays. The Scottish clubs, they have to be aware of players in Africa, in Asia, in Northern Europe, Southern Europe. And when there's so many good players out there that could, be interesting for your club, and you need to collect information like, what do they cost, how much do they earn, who's their agent, who to speak to in the club about their situation. It's very manual to have to do that via phone calls and networking. So being able to do it via TransferRoom is helping clubs in many different ways.
And you were saying there as well, Scottish clubs, that's obviously where a Scottish outlet, and we've known about it for a number of years now, where I would take Rangers, for instance, who have been under multiple different sporting directors, Ross Wilson, Nils Coppin, the current setup as well, where they've been invested in TransferRoom, and Oscar Cortez was a deal that was announced through TransferRoom or conducted through there. Ryan Nadiri just recently in January as well. Why have Rangers, just specifically Rangers, they seem to be a club that's become involved in TransferRoom? What are they finding, or just your experiences with them as a club? What are they benefiting from being involved with TransferRoom?
Yeah, so for a club like Rangers, they can benefit from both recruitment and outplacement of players. So they're obviously, I would say, in the middle of the transfer market food chain. If you place PSG and Man City and Liverpool at the top, and clubs from the bottom league of the Scottish Premiership in the bottom, then they are there in the middle, and that's why when you're in the middle of the transfer market food chain, there's really a lot of opportunities for you. You can see that the Scottish clubs, in second division, they maybe are more focused on local recruitment and in the Scottish league, and taking loans from the bigger clubs. Whereas a club like Rangers, they can do deals with they can have interest in players from Colombia, like you mentioned with Cortez, and their players can be interesting for players around the whole world. Sorry, clubs around the whole world. And I think Rangers, they've always hired really innovative sporting directors, like you mentioned yourself. Ross Wilson is really famous for thinking out of the box and always being very smart about his ways of working. Kevin Thelwell was there as well, that has always used TransferRoom and been an early adopter, open to new ideas. So we've had a good collaboration with them over the years.
And Kevin Thelwell's an interesting one you mentioned there. He had a good reputation in England, but when he came to Glasgow, it was Russell Martin was the manager. A lot of his signings early on, it didn't work in the start, and he left quite quickly into the job. But transfers do need time to be proven correct, and signings such as Yusuf Chermiti, who obviously knew at Everton, but he's actually started to, his reputation's enhanced after he's left the job. But there's this feeling that sporting directors in general They know each other so well. It's quite a small industry, isn't it? Really, like there's guys who've moved around clubs. How important that element you offer? So people say about the speed dating element, but it's so different being on a call. See these guys being able to meet in cities and really do deals. Is it not? If Scottish teams have got a voice there in the room, it must make a massive difference. It must really help them get deals over the line and proper relationships. That must be so important.
Yeah, football is a very, very relation-based industry. That's why I'm here myself in Athens today. I have a few meetings, and it's better to go and meet people in person. But yeah, when the Scottish clubs are coming to the TransferRoom summits, they are basically sometimes some of them say that they get a month's work done in one afternoon, because if now I'm here myself, I fly to Athens, and tomorrow I fly to Barcelona, and yesterday I was in Amsterdam, and it's quite tedious to take so many flights to meet clubs in different places. And what TransferRoom Summit does is that it basically brings decision makers from 300 clubs in one place, and you can have instead of traveling 1,000 miles, to have a meeting, you just walk 10 meters, and you have a meeting with a club in Colombia here. Then you have 15 minutes with a club in Denmark here, and a Greek club here. So you can really collect really big amounts of market intel in one afternoon at the TransferRoom summits, and that's why the Scottish clubs are attending in order to be prepared for the summer transfer market.
So even just in the current format, I know teams come and go, but out the current Scottish teams, who are the regular attendees? Who are you seeing at most summits? Who's arriving time after time?
Yeah, I think we work with most of the Scottish top teams, also Celtic and Hibernian, Motherwell. Yeah, I think there's those ones have been there. I think like TransferRoom has a quite good market fit for these clubs in the top of the Scottish league, and it's been a pleasure to host them every time they've been there.
Just a question about Celtic as well. Right now, they've been the team that's dominated Scottish football for this. They won 13 of the 14 last Scottish Premiership titles. They have recruited very well at points, but there's a feeling among the fan base that there's an inconsistency in the recruitment, in the sense that they might invest in Arnie Engels at 11 million, 12 million pounds, and then it'll be kind of a different profile of target. When Celtic arrive, they must obviously have a presence. What can it help for Celtic move? There's got to be a massive change in the summer in terms of new manager, a big outgoing of players and incoming arrivals and players. What can TransferRoom give Celtic? Where does that help? You're saying about the food chain earlier. Is that beneficial to a team like Celtic to do business quickly and get things over the line?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like that when you want to sell anything in life or you want to buy anything in life. The more options you have, the better a decision you can make. So, for example, if we look at recruitment, I obviously don't know Celtic's needs for the summer, but let's imagine that they were looking for a striker. Essentially they want to know about all the strikers that have the level to play in Celtic. How much they cost, how much they earn, who's their agent, who to speak to in their club to get a deal done. And if you have to phone up everyone and you're limited by your network, on TransferRoom you have an unlimited market access, because you can access so many players and informations in very little time, and then make your decision on which striker you would want to buy. On the other hand, if you want to outplace a player, let's imagine you have a left back and you want to sell him. Ideally, you want to know about all the clubs in the world that are looking for left backs. How much can they pay? Who to speak to in the club to get a deal done? What type of left back are they looking for? And again, if you are, depending on the agent to bring you an offer, he might have a very strong network in Scotland and England, but that means you're probably not going to get any offers from clubs in Spain and Italy, or So basically, with TransferRoom, being able to promote your players, share information about this availability, get information about which clubs are looking for a left back and how much they can pay is basically key in order to find deals. We had, for example, Tomoki Iwata was a player that went from Celtic to Birmingham, where TransferRoom played a role. And I think it can be a great tool for them to use in the summer as well if they have some changes to do in the squad.
Excellent. That's one. Just to touch on, you mentioned with Ross Wilson there about being innovative. He's just quite a creative kind of transfer mind in what he does. Now he's at Newcastle. Newcastle, a club that you've dealt with in the past or will be dealing in the future with Ross at the helm. Do you imagine having a working relationship now that he's at St James's Park?
Yeah, actually, I believe Newcastle was actually the first club that ever signed as a TransferRoom client. That must have been back in 2019. So we've been working together with Newcastle since 2019. They've been renewing their contract year after year. They, obviously they change sporting directors, but with Ross coming in, we continue to have a good collaboration with them.
That's interesting. Just one more just on Ross as well is like, again, maybe it's quite a Scottish thing that the sporting director world, it was quite a new. I think Scottish football, like many leagues, were used to managers and old style recruitment. We get this new age vision, and for someone like Ross who started at Falkirk, worked in England, came back to Glasgow, worked with Steven Gerrard, and then he had great success at Nottingham Forest before going to Newcastle. You've obviously got a high opinion of him. What is it to someone who maybe only knows him just through his work at it? What kind of personality is he? Where does he get the strong reputation among his peers and yourselves?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think that there's, different sporting directors with different qualities. Obviously, some of them, they have a really strong eye in terms of, spotting the best next talents. Some of them are really strong in negotiations, but I think the modern sporting director have to be, less of like a superstar and being very good at creating a team around him and delegating and finding the right people. And I think every time you meet Ross, you see him with a smile on his face. He has a great personality. He has a very good reputation in the industry for his desire to win and his work rate and inspiring others around him to want to win as well, and also to making people around him good and make them look good. So I think he has a very good mix of all the skills that are required for a sporting director. Nowadays, you also need to take care of the academy, the women's team and things like that. So I think he's overall a top professional that has a really, really good understanding of the market and is very good at working with a team around him.
So just tell us yourself in terms of TransferRoom, what are the goals? What can Scottish clubs moving forward? What can they expect if they sign up? Or just this example you gave about their place on the market sounds quite enticing to clubs. Why should Scottish clubs look to be involved with yourself? What would they gain from being involved with TransferRoom? And what have the clubs that have been involved, what have they gained? What do you think they've really taken from it?
Yeah, I think that you gain a much bigger access to the market in terms of being able to see all of the opportunities that are there instead of just a handful by relying on your own personal network. So the speed that information travels online, you just can't compete with. So when you have 800 clubs and 500 agencies sharing information about their requirements on the transfer market, whether it be positions they're looking to recruit or players they're looking to move out, it's like that. Imagine that you had to look for an apartment in Rangers by calling up all your mates and asking them, do you know if there's any apartments for sale and how much they cost? Nowadays you just go on an online marketplace. I don't know what's the big one in Scotland, but yeah. And looking at what the Scottish clubs have gotten already, I think clubs like Celtic, Rangers, Hibernian, who have been to many TransferRoom events over the years, I think at a TransferRoom summit like the one we had yesterday in Amsterdam, you can probably meet 40 to 50 clubs or agents in the market. So if we say 50 and you've attended 5 events, having expanded your network to 250 key stakeholders in the business instead of having to travel 250 different places around is something very unique. And when we look at what's tangible, so I can see that, for example, Hibernian, they recruited both Salinger and Iredale So one of them quickly became their number one keeper, and Salinger, and I think Iredale has been a consistent starter as well. For Rangers, they also recruited Cornelius and Giga. And a club like Motherwell, I think Theo Bear was signed to Motherwell, and then they sold him. Then he was sold on to Auxerre. I think it might have been the agent that is also using TransferRoom, but that seems like a good deal for all parties. So apart from the network, the time savings, there's been a lot of tangible success stories as well.
And Nasser Jigger, the one you mentioned there with Rangers, he's quite an interesting case. He was bought for £10 million by Wolves. Probably it was viewed that he maybe wasn't quite ready for the Premier League, but he's come up in a season-long loan for Rangers. And now, like all these things, his best form is happening right now. There's a big debate in Scotland about him and his potential suitability. But that's a great way you're mentioning the TransferRoom, that maybe a deal, an access port that might not always be there for clubs. And again, that was in the Kevin Thelwell era. Did you know, if you spoke to Kevin, do you know Kevin well?
I know Kevin quite well.
Yeah. And that's him to a T, then finding a kind of English deal there, and he's obviously back in the game now as well. So there's opportunities, isn't there, for Scottish clubs through yourself. It's an interesting time. I don't know if you know that Hearts are right in the mix to be the first team outside Celtic and Rangers to win the league in 40 years. So there's a lot of women there. Do you know Tony Bloom? Is Tony Bloom been a man who's been involved in TransferRoom over the years, or does he do his own thing?
I don't know everywhere. He's from Hearts, yeah?
Yeah, Tony Bloom, Brighton owner. He's the Brighton owner.
Tony Bloom.
Yeah. So he's also involved in Hearts now.
Brighton have actually been also one of our best users ever on TransferRoom. I think they've done around 30-40 transfers via the platform. They obviously had a lot of players on loan. That they developed very well, like Moises Caicedo. His loan to Beerschot in Belgium was also helped with TransferRoom, who then obviously he got sold for 100 million to Chelsea after. So definitely.
So what comes next for TransferRoom? You've gone from you're breaking new barriers with deals. Is there ever a chance maybe we have a summit in Edinburgh, a summit in Glasgow one day? Do you think you might ever come to these shows?
Yeah, that could be definitely. We usually did 2 global events, so one in March and one in November, where we try to gather 300 clubs. But now we've also been hosting what we call local connects. So instead of trying to gather 300 clubs from the whole world, we might have do one smaller one in the UK, that could be in Glasgow, for example, and gathering Scottish, Irish, and English clubs. And what's next for us is becoming what we call a multi-product company. As you showed on one of the first slides, we usually had the marketplace feature that was our main thing, and now we've developed something that we call contingency AI, which is basically a contract management tool for legal directors, for finance directors, to keep track of all these clauses and contingencies that are in the transfer agreements and player contracts at the moment. We also have made a scouting platform where clubs can actually log their scouting reports. We help clubs track injury data of players, which is getting more and more important. So that's what's becoming next for us. It's always been our mission to provide as much value for the clubs, and now we want to provide it for multiple key stakeholders in the club.
And just touch on Amsterdam just finally there. How do you feel, with yourself obviously involved in it a long time, so from the first summits in the beginning, do you think there's maybe a curiosity in the beginning with clubs dipping their toes in, to now it's obviously a bona fide working system? How do you, even in terms of mood and experience, how serious an operation are we looking at this week in Amsterdam? It must be, even though it's a great, clubs get to go on a trip and see all this, but is it a business, pure business, and people are looking to get good deals done? How do you feel it's changed during the start of TransferRoom to now?
Yeah, obviously the main change is the increase in attendees. I think in the beginning, like you said, clubs were curious, but we definitely saw that there was a huge need for something like this, the networking. And now we've gone from having events of 100 people to 200 people to 300 people. Now I think this one had 500 people in Amsterdam. So it's massive, and it's very global, with clubs from Japan, Australia, Ecuador, Ukraine coming to our summits.
Listen, Simon, I can't thank you enough for your time. I've really enjoyed chatting to you today, and it's been a pleasure. Just congratulations on all TransferRoom success as well, and I really appreciate you joining me today. All the best to you, okay?
Thank you.
So thank you so much for joining us.